This video will cover how to create an online test or quiz inside your MyLanguageLab course. To make an online test or quiz, all you have to do is from the Today's view, go to Course Content, and you can create your online quiz or test in the Assign Content area of your course. Now to create your online quiz or test, all you'll need to do is choose the Add Content button that will appear. You choose Add Content, and notice you will have the option to choose Test. Now, one point I'd like to make before we start going through the actual steps of creating the online test is by choosing this option right now, I am deciding where I'd like my test to live inside my MyLanguageLab course. For instance, you can add a test or add content to any folder or subfolder inside your MyLanguageLab course. By choosing Add Content at this top level of your course, you will then be adding the test and it will appear at the bottom of your list. For instance, here's an example of a quiz I had previously created. You can also add a test into any of the subfolders or folders that I've already created inside your course. There is no right or wrong to this. It's just a matter of deciding as an instructor how you'd like to organize your testing activities inside your own MyLanguageLab course. Some instructors like to keep their quizzes and tests on the main page of their course content area. And if that's the case, all you have to do when you come into course content is choose the Add Content and select Test option. If you would like to have your quiz or test located inside one of the current chapter folder or lesson folders inside your course, all you have to do is click to open one of those folders first. And now when you are inside that specific folder, you can choose the Add Content button and choose a test. When you're finished creating your online test or quiz, that particular activity now will be located inside the folder that was currently opened at the time that you selected Add Content. If you would like something to go into one of the subfolders, all you have to do is open that subfolder and then choose the Add Content button. Please note, you can also create your own folders or subfolders inside your MyLanguageLab course. If you'd like to make a separate subfolder inside any of the current folders you have, all you have to do is choose Add Content and choose the Add Folder option. You could then call that folder name Quiz or Test and click Create. This will create a folder for you that you can then decide to open and add content to. Everything that you add or create inside your MyLanguageLab course will always be displayed at the bottom of the current list inside that folder. Here is that folder I just created. Notice it's set to a hidden status. This is by default, and so this item, this folder, will not be visible right away to your students. It's in a hidden state. At any point, you're welcome to make that particular item or folder shown to the student. Your students will not have access to view anything in the hidden status. And so if you do want them to see this folder, make sure you select it and choose the Show Hide option at the top of the toolbar. This will then allow that folder to be visible to your student when they open the Chapter 1 folder on their side. You could then open that subfolder and now choose Add Content and add a test or quiz and create that, and that quiz or test now will be located inside the subfolder. One last thing additionally is if you do not want to have your quizzes and tests inside each individual chapter or lesson folder, you can also create a test folder that will appear outside of any chapter. Notice the one you're seeing here. To create a test folder outside of any of the chapter folders, all you have to do is when you come into the Assign Content area, you're in the My Course area. When you see this My Course visible in the box, this means you're at the top level of your course, and anything you add will simply be added at the bottom of the list. And so if you'd like to add a folder, just choose Add Content, Add Folder, and you can name that folder anything you'd like. I'm going to call this Quizzes, since I already have a test folder created in my course. Notice now the Quizzes folder will appear and it will be set to a hidden status. You could then open that folder and create your test or quiz inside that folder. Also note too that you can move your quiz or test folders anywhere you like inside your course. For instance, they will always appear at the bottom of your page when you first create them. However, if you'd like this testing folder to appear at the top of the page above any of the beginning chapter or lessons, all you have to do is select it on the left-hand side by clicking into the box on the left next to the name of the folder you'd like to move, and use the toolbar at the top and choose the scissors to cut that item. It's a simple cut and paste, and the next thing you have to do is simply just click on the paste button that is located right next to the scissors and choose the word paste at top. This will immediately bring that folder and any of its subcontents, if you have anything inside of it, up to the top of the list. Again, if you'd like to create new tests or quizzes inside this folder, you do need to click on the name test or quiz and open it, and you'll see any of the previous tests or quizzes you've created, and you're also able to click add content and create more. Let's go over the steps of actually creating an online quiz or test. The steps are the same, the only difference being is the name that you'll give that test or quiz. And so if you're making a quiz, you just simply will name it a quiz. If you're making a test, then you can name it a test to know the difference. Choose add content and then choose test. You will now be brought to the first page on creating your online quiz or test. The first page will allow you the ability to give that test or quiz a name. So this is when you will name it whatever it is that you would like to name that inside your course. For instance, I'm going to call this Chapter 2 Test. The only other place on this page that you need to select is the basic random option. This will allow you the ability to choose from our select from our existing test bank of testing materials that we've created specifically for the textbook program that you're using in your course. When you're ready, you can click Save and Continue in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll be brought over to the next area of creating your online test, the Questions tab. This is a place where you're now able to add specific activities into your current quiz or test that you're creating. The next thing I'm about to say is probably one of the most important things that you need to remember about creating your online test. When you want to select from our existing testing activities, what you need to select on this page is the Add Sections button. Think of sections as an activity name. And so you would like to add testing activities into your online test. By choosing Add Sections, notice you'll get two options. You will want to select sections from existing activities. Think of this as selecting from our online test bank. Just note too, you do have the ability to create your own section, or in other words, your own testing activity inside the MyLanguageLab online testing area. You can create as many testing activities as you want on your own that include machine-graded type of activities. You can also create instructor-graded type activities. We offer special webinar training for any instructor that's interested in creating their own activity inside the course. Notice too, you can mix match and choose from some of ours and be able to come back up and select to create some of yours. So you can create an online test that includes our content that we provided to you for testing and also your own. This webinar will only talk about the steps on adding in the publisher provided testing activities. So in that case, you're going to choose Select Sections from Existing Activities, and that will pull open a new window where you will now be able to navigate and find the different testing activities we have for each chapter or lesson inside your MyLanguageLab course. The next step you'll want to take is to open up the Instructor Resource folder. This folder houses the testing materials for all the different chapters inside the course. To get to our testing materials, you're going to choose Instructor Resources. And notice now you'll have two places to go to. You can either navigate to the testing resources by chapter, or you can go by type. The testing activities are the same no matter which way that you navigate, but let's say you wanted to open up a folder where you could have access to click and open each testing activity per chapter in one place, and you don't have to go back and reopen different chapter folders. If that sounds interesting or fun to you and easier for you to do, you're going to want to choose Text Resources by type. I'm going to walk you through that right now. So I just chose Text Resources by type, and notice now right away I see a folder called Testing Program for Online Testing. Think of this as the folder that contains all the different testing materials for each chapter or lesson of your MyLanguageLab course that you're using. By clicking open this, you will now have access to each of these chapter links. To access the testing activities or test bank inside one of these chapters, all you have to do is select the chapter from the list. For instance, I'm making a Chapter 2 test, so I'm going to choose the Capítulo 2 Online Testing Modules link. Notice now on the right, I have the names of each of the section or testing activities that we have provided already for you that go correlated to the textbook that you're using inside your MyLanguageLab course. You'll be able to see the name of that testing activity along with the number of questions involved and the net points related to that. You can choose as many or as little of these testing activities as you'd like, and you're always able to come back to this window and add more activities in at a later time. All you have to do to add an activity is to select or check off the item on the right-hand side box next to the activity name that you'd like to add into your course. Once you are done or selected everything you need to do, you can simply just choose the Add and Close button. If you'd like to add these testing activities, but then also go and add different testing activities from a different chapter. This is great if you're making a midterm or a final exam, or if you're creating a test that combines multiple chapter material. If you wanted to add additional content from a different chapter, you need to make sure you select on the right from the first chapter you chose and choose the Add button. This will leave this window open and allow you to choose from a different chapter. And you could select items from that chapter and keep clicking Add until you're finished with all the different chapters you'd like to add into that test. And then once you're done in the final chapter, you can choose the Add and Close button. This will then close that window and bring you back into your Questions tab. Notice now we're brought back to the Questions tab, and now we have activities listed inside the Questions tab area. Once these testing activities are listed in this area, think of them now as included in your current online quiz or test. You have complete control to customize or change any of these activities inside the course and feel confident that they're not being changed in the actual test bank itself. If you ever need to add more activities to your current test or quiz, all you have to do is come back to this Questions tab and choose the Add Sections button, select from existing activities. This will reopen that window and you can then navigate through Instructor Resources and back into the online testing program. Now let me explain what you're seeing here on this window. In this Questions tab, you will see the name of the activity appear at the top in the pink area. Think of this as your direction line. The direction line will also appear right here in this pink area, and if you want to, you have the ability to edit that by clicking the Edit button. This would open up the directions we've already included for you, and you can decide to add or change anything that you wish. When you're done, just click OK. Below that testing activity direction line, you will then see the number of questions included in that activity. You will also see the type of activity it is and the number of points associated to each of the questions inside that testing activity. As you scroll further down, you'll see the next testing activity appear that you selected, along with that direction line, and then the number of questions that go with that activity. One thing I'd like to point out as a little tip, as you know, inside your MyLanguageLab course, we have activities that are machine gradable, graded automatically by the program, and also we have instructor graded activities. Also, the testing activities that we provide to you that you find in your online test bank also contain instructor and machine gradable activities. Well, how can you tell which ones are instructor graded and which ones are machine graded in your online test? A quick and easy way to tell if that particular activity is an instructor graded activity, when you're scrolling through the area of your testing activities that you've added into your course, notice the type field. Whenever you see the type essay, as in right here, this will indicate to you that that particular testing activity is an instructor graded activity. Notice too, it will also say instructor graded activity in the direction line in the pink area of that course. So if you were to assign this quiz or test to your students, the test itself, the program will auto-grade any of the activities that are machine graded and then submit into you in your instructor grading channel the activities that do need your grading. Once you go in and grade, the program will then combine both the scores and that grade is then reported into the grade book. If you do not want to create a test with any instructor graded activities, just make sure that the type you never see the word essay. We have plenty of activities to choose from that are non-instructor graded. To remove an activity from your online quiz or test that you've already added in, All you have to do is check off the box next to the name of the testing activity, and notice all the questions associated to that activity are also selected below. Once you've checked off that box, you can choose the delete button at the top. This will remove that testing activity from your specific online quiz or test. It's still located in the test bank, but it's now removed from your course. Choose OK, and that item is now removed. In addition, if you like a specific testing activity we provided, but notice that you might not want as many questions that we have included in for you, note too that you can delete or remove specific questions inside the course. By checking the box next to the name of any question that you'd like to remove, you can simply click there and choose delete and remove those specific items from your online test. Lastly, about this questions page, if you would like to preview any of the items that you've already added in, you can do so on this page. To preview an item, you will always have a Show Question Preview button that will appear right here towards the right-hand side. Click on this button and a white box now will appear on the right. In order for an item to appear in this white box, the preview, you need to choose somewhere on the left. If you'd like to see the direction line for that activity, click on the pink area of that specific testing activity and your direction line will appear to your right. If you'd like to see a specific question, just click on the word or question and you will then have it appear on your right. Also note too, if any of the questions or direction lines have any audio, you will also be able to listen and hear the audio in the preview area. One final thing, I'm going to choose the Hide Preview option, and one other thing I'd like to point out is the order of the testing activities that appear inside your Questions tab here. If you would like to change the order of how your questions will appear to your students, notice you have arrows, up and down arrows on the right towards the right-hand side. By choosing one of these arrows, you can move the testing activity up or down the page. So for instance, if I would like as the second testing activity my students will take, I'm going to choose the up arrow and move that testing activity to the second spot on the list. So you can use these arrows up or down to move the testing content up and down. The order that you see the testing activities and questions on this page is the same exact order that your students will see and go through in taking their online quiz or test. Please note we do have the ability for you to shuffle the order of these activities. And so some students may get this activity as their first activity, while other students may get como son as their activity as their first activity. The students would end up taking the whole same test, but just get the different testing activities you've inserted in the test in a different order. To do that, we have an area on the Preferences tab, and I will point that out to you when we get to that tab during this tutorial session. By default, we have that setting turned off, and so without changing anything, if you were to save this test, your students would get the order that would appear in the list that you have when you click Save. At the bottom right-hand corner, you can choose Save and Continue and move on to the next area of creating your online test. Notice there's a Helps Links tab. Most instructors typically skip over this tab as this is an online quiz or test and you will not need to insert any help links for your students. So just simply click Save and Close and go to another important tab that we call Messages. This is a place that you're able to give a message to your students before they open and look at the online test or quiz that you've created for them. Think of this as your virtual little announcement. Typically, if you're in a traditional setting with a course, you may have some words that you'd like to tell your students before you hand out the paper test to them. Think of this area, the message area, of a place where you can type out and say those words that you would normally say to the student in the classroom. Think of this message area as a place where you can type out the words you would normally say to your student before you would hand out the test in a traditional classroom. If you're having your students take this test in an online format, you can then type in at the first box called Beginning of Activity. This would allow your students to see a message before they even see the test questions themselves. And so this is a place if you'd like to give them any last minute instructions. If you are going to time the test, which you set in your preference preference area, if you are going to set a time limit for them to take this test, a lot of instructors like to type that in this message area so the student knows ahead of time, or is reminded ahead of time, how much time they're going to have to take this test. You're going to have them do any voice recording activities that we have available in our testing bank. You might want to remind your students to make sure they have their microphone turned on, set up, and tested before they open up the online test. And this will help stop any microphone issues your students might have by simply forgetting to turn on their microphone. Also note that we give your students a default message that appears towards the top. And so if you don't want to write anything or have time to write anything to your students, we've done that for you. And so they will at least get a brief message from you at the beginning. And you can add to that message by clicking here in this box. One little side tip or note, notice there's this Edit HTML button over here on the right. If you click on this, this will open up an editor where you can actually change your font size, your font color, anything you'd like. If you've already typed in information, you can highlight it and then change your color. You can also decide to change your font and also your font size. And so if I would like to make this font bigger, I can choose to make it bigger. I can choose to underline a portion of the test or highlight and change a color. So you can really customize this for your students. And when you're done, just click OK. Notice the HTML will appear in this window. Do not worry. Your message will look great to your students. The next area, I'm just going to click Save and Continue. And notice we're at a Grades tab. Most instructors also skip over this area, as this will just allow you to enter in a grade schema if you choose to for your students. For example, if you wanted them, instead of getting a score of an 82 or a 95, instead if you'd rather see them get a grade of an A, a B, a C, or a D. So a letter grade would be scored in the grade book instead of their actual percentage grade, you would want to select the grade schema. If that does not apply to you, then you want to leave this area blank. Do not select anything. When this area is blank, then you have no grade schema applied to your online quiz or test, and the proper score, percentage score, will be displayed to your students in the gradebook. You can always go back and turn this grade schema off if by accident you have set it. Choose Save and Continue to the last area of creating your online course, the preference page. Now, we have automatically default set this preference page for you to help ensure a complete online testing environment for your students. For instance, we've turned off the resource toolbar and we've turned off other settings that the students might normally get in a typical homework activity. We wanted to make this more like a testing environment for them. You do have the ability to change any of these preference settings, and I'm going to go over a few of the most frequently asked or changed areas of our default settings for you as an instructor. One of the areas, or I would like to point out as well, most instructors actually don't change this, but I just want to make this clear for you, is that notice we've already set the number of attempts to 1 attempt for your student. This means the student will only be able to open and view the testing activities 1 time and 1 time only, regardless of whether they submit it for grading or not. This ensures the test security of your test. You do have the ability to override and reset a student if by accident they open a test legitimately and had either an internet issue or any other technical issue and would like to retake the test. You do have the ability as an instructor to do so. We have instructions in our instructor user guide, and we're more than happy to provide that information to you. But notice it's set to 1. If you would like to change this attempt number and increase it, just simply change the number in the box. Also, one area that is turned off, but some instructors do like to turn this on, is remember when we were on the questions tab, I mentioned that the order that the testing activities appear on this questions tab will be the order that your students will take the test. Some instructors, to help with test security, like to shuffle the order of those testing activities to the different students. So each student that opens the quiz or test will get a different order of testing activities. To turn that shuffling on, you will need to select the shuffle order of sections to each student. Notice it's automatically turned off. And so if you do not want this shuffled order on, just know you don't have to do a thing. One other area over on further down the page is timing. This is where you can set a time limit for your students for your quiz or test. To set a time limit for the entire quiz or test, you're going to want to choose Enforce at Activity Level. Notice by default it's set to none, which means that the timing is currently turned off. And so if you do not want to have any timing for your students, you don't have to do a thing. If you would like to set a timing, you're going to want to choose activity level. This means the whole entire quiz or test. So from start to finish of all the questions you've included on your questions tab, your students will be timed. Then you can take a time. Then you can set a time in the box below. Notice the first box is for hours and the second box is for minutes. So if you were setting a quiz or a test for 30 minutes, you're going to want to keep the 2 zeros in the hour box and change the minute box. If you would like to set an hour time as well, for instance, an hour and 30 minutes, you would choose this. Notice too, you have one other option to choose Enable Buzzer Before Time. You can turn this on if you'd like, and this would give a reminder to your students when they're running out of time for the test. You can still not enable this buzzer, and your students would still have a time enforced, and no matter what, the students will always have a timer ticking down the amount of time they have left at the top of their browser window. They will always be able to see how much time they have left in the test or quiz. Also note, a student can submit a quiz or test before the time is up, just like they can hand in a quiz or test before their time is up in the classroom. If, though, the student has not submitted the quiz or test and the time runs out, the program will then auto-submit, force submit for them, and grade that test as is. If a student did not complete any certain questions, that program will grade that student wrong for those questions. You'll be able to see in the summary, as will the student, which questions the student attempted and got wrong, and which questions the student never attempted and got marked as wrong. It will also grade correctly any questions the student did get correct, and that grade will then be reported into the gradebook. One last area on this preference tab that is a popular area to mention is, notice under feedback, the correct answer feedback. This correct answer feedback area is specific to, do you want your students to know what the correct answer is when they get an answer wrong? This would be shown after the student submits the test in to be graded and they see their score. There will be a summary of their score along with which answers they got correct or incorrect. It's on those incorrect answers, do you want your students to know if they got something wrong, what the right answer should have been? Right now, this correct answer indicator is set to never. So that means that when a student is marked wrong with a red X, they will be told they're marked wrong, but they will not be told what the correct answer should be. If you would like them to know what the correct answer should have been when they took the test, you can change this to at attempt 1, always, or after the due date. We do not recommend you choose after the due date when you're doing an online quiz or test, as it will require your students to resubmit the test in and see what the correct answer was after the due date. Since this test is normally set to 1 attempt, your student will not be able to go back to resubmit an activity in after the due date, unless you change it to 2 or more attempts. We either suggest you choose at attempt 1, never, or always, which would just be at that first attempt only. If you do have any questions about any of the preferences that you see on this preference page, please contact your local Pearson representative or Pearson Learning Technology specialist that you work closely with, and they're more than happy to help answer any of your questions before you start changing and clicking around. Once you're done creating your test, all you have to do is click Save and Return. You will then be asked to save a copy to the content library. All you need to do is choose Add and Close. But just know what's going on in this window is that the program is asking you to save a backup copy to your particular section or template's content library. This is a backup library that we have in each of your courses that in case you ever by accident delete any testing activities or any other content or activity that you've either added yourself or we provided, we have a backup copy for you, so you do not have to recreate it. All you need to do is just click Add and Close to save that backup copy, and now you'll be Now your test will be saved and you'll be brought back to the folder or place you were in when you first clicked Add Content to make your test. Notice now I have a Chapter 2 test listed here, and it's automatically set to a hidden status. This means your students will not be able to see this test after you've created it. But know that you can preview it at any time. If you choose this preview, just know you will be previewing it as an instructor, and so some of the settings or preferences you might have assigned in the actual test itself will not be applied to you over here. To actually have the test be as a student, you would need to show it, assign it, and to go to the student view and take it from there to get the complete student experience of taking your test. To preview, though, the test, to see the message you've created, and also to look at all the content you added into your online test or quiz, all you have to do is click on the name of the test, and it will open in a preview mode. You'll also be able to see the message that would appear to your student. Notice here the student will have a start button. Their attempt or their time will not start until they click the start button. So at this point, as a student, I can't see any questions. I can still choose to close this window and not be counted for my attempt. But once I open this test and choose the start button and I can see the testing questions and activities, I have now started and used my attempt. Notice the timer that will appear, and you will now be able to look at all the questions that you inserted in from creating your online test. Also know you have the ability to go back and edit any online test after you've created it. To edit and go back to any of those sub-tabs that we were just looking at previously, all you need to do is put your mouse on the name of the test or quiz you'd like to edit and click on the gray options menu, and then choose the word edit, and notice you'll be brought right back to all the tabs that we had accessible before. You can rename the test, and you can also go back to the questions, messages, preferences tab, change anything you'd like, add more questions, delete questions, switch a preference, add an additional message or change your message. And when you're done, anytime, just click Save and Return at the bottom, and you'll be brought back to your course area and those changes where you have the ability to assign this online test with certain testing restrictions. We have a separate video that will walk you through all the different options and features you have on delivering your online quiz or test to your students, including some test restrictions that they might normally not be applied to a normal homework activity. Just know you're still able to assign this test to the calendar and also set specific test security measures as well for your students when taking their online test. This concludes how to create an online test or quiz inside your MyLanguageLab course.